I want to carry your child, human, the Queen said, and my world stopped. The unexpected summit. The shuttle descended through Celestara's iridescent atmosphere, and Kieran Thorne pressed his palm against the viewport, mesmerized by the floating cities below. Crystalline spires caught the light of 3 suns, casting rainbow refractions across clouds that shimmered like liquid pearl. After 6 months of preparation, he was finally here, the first human ambassador to set foot in the Celestran sovereignty in over a decade. Ambassador Thorne, his aide Marcus whispered. Remember, avoid direct eye contact until formally acknowledged. They're customs. I've studied the protocols, Kieran replied softly, adjusting his diplomatic sash. His heart raced, though he maintained his composed exterior. This meeting could change everything, end the trade embargo, open new routes for resources, perhaps even forge an actual alliance. The palace materialized before them, suspended impossibly in mid-air by technology humanity barely understood. Kieran disembarked onto a platform of living crystal that hummed beneath his feet. Celestran guards, tall and graceful with their distinctive silver hair and luminous skin, flanked the entrance. They moved like dancers, each gesture deliberate and flowing. He was led through corridors where the walls themselves seemed to breathe, pulsing with soft bioluminescent patterns. Finally, massive doors opened to reveal the throne room. The room hardly did justice to the vast space that seemed to extend into infinity, stars visible through the translucent ceiling. And there she was. Sovereign Lirelei Moon Whisper stood rather than sat upon her throne, breaking protocol immediately. She was ethereal, her silver hair flowing like water, her violet eyes holding depths Kieran couldn't fathom. She wore robes that seemed woven from starlight itself, and when she moved toward him, the very air seemed to part reverently. Ambassador Thorne, her voice was music, each word carrying harmonics human voices couldn't produce. You may look upon me freely. I find Earth's formalities limiting. Kieran raised his eyes, and their gazes met. The world shifted. Something electric passed between them, a recognition that transcended species or politics. Lirelei's lips parted slightly in surprise, her composed demeanor cracking for just an instant. Your radiance, Kieran managed, bowing deeply. I'm honored by your welcome. Come, she said, extending her hand, another break in protocol. Let us speak in the gardens. Politics can wait for walls and witnesses. First, I would know the man who traveled so far. Her fingers brushed his, and Kieran felt a warmth spread through him unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Forbidden conversations. The Aurora Chambers existed between dimensions, or so Lirelei had explained during their 3rd clandestine meeting. Here, beneath waves of light that danced across the domed ceiling, they could speak without the weight of their titles pressing down upon them. Your world has no moons? Lirelei asked, reclining on a curved bench that molded itself to her form. She had abandoned her formal robes for a simple dress that shimmered like water, and Kieran found it increasingly difficult to maintain professional distance. 1 moon, he corrected, sitting closer than protocol would ever allow. Ancient and silver, pulling our tides. But nothing like your 3 dancers. He gestured toward the holographic display showing Celestara's triple satellites in their eternal waltz. Tell me about Earth's oceans, she whispered, her fingers tracing patterns in the air that left brief trails of light. I've seen images, but I want to hear it from your lips. Kieran found himself describing the Pacific at sunset, the Atlantic storms, the way salt spray felt against skin. Lirelei listened with an intensity that made his chest tighten, her violet eyes never leaving his face. We have no vast waters here, she admitted. Only the crystal lakes that sing. But there's something I must tell you, Kieran. His name on her lips sent shivers through him. She'd only started using it last night. She moved closer, close enough that he could see the subtle patterns in her luminous skin, like constellations mapped across her cheekbones. There's a prophecy among my people. It speaks of a bridge between stars, a union that would heal the wounds left by our ancestors' wars. Lirelei. He began, but she pressed a finger to his lips. The touch was electric. I feel it when you're near, she continued, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. This pull, this certainty. My body sings a frequency it's never known. The prophecy speaks of new life, of children who would carry both legacies. Her hand moved to rest against his chest, feeling his rapid heartbeat. I want to carry your child, Kieran. I want to create that bridge. The words hung between them like suspended stars. Kieran's breath caught, his diplomatic training scattered like cosmic dust. He cupped her face gently, thumb tracing the elegant line of her jaw. You're asking for more than politics can give, he said roughly. Then perhaps, she breathed, leaning into his touch, we should stop asking politics for permission. Their lips met, soft and tentative at first, then with growing passion. The aurora above them pulsed brighter, as if responding to their connection. The Council's opposition. Chancellor Dravik Ironhold's fist slammed onto the crystalline table, sending ripples of light scattering across its surface. This is madness, your radiance. A human? You would pollute our bloodline for what? A fleeting passion. Lirelei stood at the head of the council chamber, her spine straight despite the weight of 20 pairs of disapproving eyes. Kieran stood beside her, their hands not quite touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. The bloodline has grown thin, Chancellor, she replied, her voice carrying the authority of generations. Our fertility rates decline with each cycle. Perhaps it's time we looked beyond our own borders for salvation. Ambassador Thorne, Councillor Seraphine interjected, her tone dripping condescension. Surely you understand the impossibility of this arrangement. Your own people would never accept it. Kieran had received 17 messages from Earth in the past hour alone, each more frantically demanding his immediate return. General Morrison had been particularly colourful in his assessment of Kieran's compromised judgment. My people fear what they don't understand, Kieran said firmly. But fear has never been a good foundation for policy. The Sovereign and I. The Sovereign has clearly been influenced by off-world pheromones, Dravik sneered. Perhaps the human emits some chemical that affects Celestran judgment. Lirelei's eyes flashed dangerously. You dare suggest I cannot command my own mind? I suggest, Dravik stood slowly, his height imposing, that you remember your duty. Your mother would never have. My mother died trying to preserve old hatreds, Lirelei cut him off. I choose to live creating new hopes. That evening, in her private chambers, Lirelei trembled in Kieran's arms. They lay entwined on her sleeping platform, her head resting against his chest as he stroked her silver hair. They're not wrong, she whispered. This path we're choosing, it will cost us everything. Kieran tilted her chin up, meeting those impossible violet eyes. Then we'll build something new from what we lose. He kissed her forehead tenderly. I've already sent my resignation to Earth's diplomatic corps. She sat up abruptly. Kieran, no. Your career means nothing without you. He pulled her back down, holding her close. I knew the moment you said those words in the Aurora chamber. There's no going back for me. The Festival of Twin Moons is tomorrow, she said softly. If we appear together, if I declare my intentions publicly. Then we face the storm together, he finished, sealing the promise with a kiss that made the very air around them shimmer. The sacred ritual. The Festival of Twin Moons transformed Celestara into a living canvas of light. 2 of the planet's 3 satellites aligned perfectly, their combined radiance bathing the floating cities in silver and gold. Millions of Celestrans gathered in the grand amphitheater, a massive bowl carved from a single crystal that sang with harmonic frequencies. Kieran stood in the preparation chamber, wearing ceremonial robes that Lirelei had commissioned specifically for him, a blend of Earth's deep blues and Celestara's signature silver. His hands trembled slightly as Marcus helped adjust the collar. You don't have to do this, Marcus said quietly. There's still time to. To what? Run. Kieran turned to face his friend. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Meanwhile, Lirelei stood before an ancient mirror that had reflected every sovereign for 1,000 years. Her attendants wove starflowers into her hair, but she barely noticed. Her mind was on the words she would speak, the declaration that would change everything. Your Radiance, her oldest advisor, Merilith, approached carefully. The Chancellor has gathered significant support. If you proceed, they will challenge my rule, Lirelei finished. I know. She turned, and Merilith gasped at the determination burning in her violet eyes. But some things are worth any risk. The ceremony began as tradition demanded, with songs that predated recorded history, with dancers who moved like liquid light across the stage. But when Lirelei emerged, walking toward the central platform, a hush fell over the massive crowd. She raised her hand, and her voice, amplified by the amphitheater's acoustics, reached every ear. My people, tonight marks not just the alignment of moons, but the alignment of destinies. For too long, we have isolated ourselves, believing our way superior, our blood pure. But purity without growth is stagnation. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Dravik stood in the council section, his jaw clenched. I call forth Ambassador Kiran Thorn of Earth, Lirelei continued. Kiran emerged from the shadows, walking steadily despite feeling millions of eyes upon him. When he reached Lirelei, she took both his hands in hers, and gasps echoed throughout the amphitheater. This human has shown me that courage exists beyond our borders, that love speaks in frequencies we've forgotten how to hear. She looked directly at him, her voice softening. Under these twin moons, before all of Celestara, I declare my intention to take him as my bonded mate. More than that, I will bear our child, the first bridge between our peoples. The crowd erupted, shouts of outrage, gasps of shock, but also, surprisingly, some cheers. Dravik stepped forward, his voice booming. This is blasphemy. I challenge. But his words were cut short as something extraordinary happened. When Kiran and Lirelei kissed, their bodies began to emit a soft, combined light, his blue mingling with her silver to create something entirely new. The amphitheater's crystal structure resonated with the frequency, creating a harmony that hadn't been heard in millennia. Elder Counselor Asterion, ancient beyond measure, stood slowly. The resonance, he breathed. It's the resonance of the ancestors. They approve. The light grew brighter, enveloping the couple in a cocoon of swirling energy. When it faded, Kiran and Lirelei stood transformed. She bore a faint blue tinge to her aura, while his skin held the slightest shimmer of silver. Impossible, Dravik whispered, falling to his knees along with many others. Lirelei's voice rang out once more. The universe itself has blessed this union. Who dares challenge the will of the cosmos? Unity's dawn. 6 months had passed since the festival of twin moons. The palace medical chamber hummed with a nervous energy as Healer Nazara ran another scan over Lirelei's gently swollen belly. Remarkable, she murmured for the 100th time. The child's vital signs are perfect. Both human and celestian markers are present, but they're not competing, they're harmonizing. Kiran held Lirelei's hand, their fingers intertwined as they watched the holographic display of their growing child. The image showed a being that was beautifully both and neither, features that would belong to no single world but to the stars themselves. She's strong, Lirelei said softly, her free hand resting on her stomach. I can feel her dreams sometimes. She dreams of oceans and crystal spires, of Earth's green forests and Celestara's singing lakes. The political landscape had shifted dramatically. Earth's government, initially threatening to disown Kiran entirely, had reversed course when their scientists confirmed the pregnancy's viability. The implications were staggering. If humans and Celestrians could produce offspring, it opened possibilities for genetic diversity that both species desperately needed. The trade agreements are ready for your signature, Councillor Seraphine announced, entering the chamber with a reformed attitude. She'd become one of their strongest supporters after witnessing the resonance. Earth is offering their agricultural expertise in exchange for our energy technology. It's more than we ever hoped for. Even Dravik, though still skeptical, had ceased his open opposition. The resonance was sacred, undeniable proof of cosmic approval that even he couldn't refute. That evening, Kiran and Lirelei stood on their private balcony, watching the 3 moons rise in sequence. She wore a flowing gown that accommodated her changing form, and he wrapped his arms around her from behind, hands resting protectively over their child. I received a message from Earth today, he said quietly. They're sending a full diplomatic delegation. My parents will be among them. Lirelei turned in his arms, searching his face. Are you happy? Happy doesn't begin to describe it, he replied, kissing her forehead. I'm home. Wherever you are, whatever world we're on, you're my home. She smiled, that radiant expression that still made his heart skip. Soon there will be 3 of us. The first of many, perhaps, he said with a grin. Ambitious, aren't you? Well, we are building a bridge between worlds. Might as well make it a strong one. As if in response, the baby kicked, and both parents laughed. Above them, the stars seemed to pulse with approval, and the aurora began its nightly dance, silver and blue lights intertwining across Celestara's sky, a reflection of the love that had made the impossible possible. In the distance, construction had begun on the first joint human-Celestran embassy, a building that would exist simultaneously on both worlds through quantum entanglement technology. It would be ready just in time for their daughter's birth, a child who would belong to both worlds and be limited by neither. What shall we name her? Lirelei asked, settling back against his chest. Something that means hope in both our languages, Kieran suggested. Aurora, they said in unison, then laughed at the synchronicity. As the night deepened, they remained on the balcony, planning a future that their ancestors could never have imagined. A future where love had conquered fear, where difference became strength, and where a single child would carry the dreams of 2 civilizations toward the stars. The Age of Unity had begun. The end.